Hi, all, and welcome to this super special episode of Brewing e-commerce. And this episode could actually be power of LinkedIn in a lot of ways, and I'll tell you why. But somebody that I have here, I've known her for ages, and through the whole LinkedIn, we got connected, and it was more about her work and what she was doing. I am so happy to have a friend and somebody who's really made a dent in the industry with us today to share our views. Welcome, Sneha.
Thank you so much, Shetang. I mean, building on what you said, you and I have now known each other for 20 years.
Yeah. Since all the gray herring and all that, Sneha, but I don't want to get there. Yeah,
Yes. And it's great, that's one of the, like you said, it's the power of LinkedIn. I mean, over years, of course, sometimes you lose touch with people, and then how it has the power to bring you back together and spark conversations that you didn't think were possible.
yeah, yeah. But that spark happens when you do some outstanding work, which you are, and that's what Player kind of brought me again. So while now I know a lot of that, Sneha, but just to get it kickstarted, I'd love you to kind of introduce yourself and give us a little bit of your professional journey until now, please.
Perfect. So I think I've been a marketeer for the last decade and a half. I was fortunate enough to realize what is it that I wanted to do early on, and then sort of work towards it. Most of my career's been in FMCG marketing, and then a significant. I've spent 5 years living in the UK, so that gave me exposure to a different geography. Then I also spent 5 years with the Aditya Birla Group, which gave me exposure to non FMCG marketing work. And in the last year and a half, I was associated with a tea startup based out of India, which is Vadham. I was their CMO up until August. And right now, I'm taking my free time to engage with people, talk to, reconnect with old friends like you, talk to other founders in the industry, and re- just finding out what's happening.
Okay, lucky me, lucky time. That's all I have to say. No, so thank you for that, Sneha. And I'm gonna pick on a lot of that because what you summarized is decade and a half of a lot of experience, learning, hard work, which we're gonna go and extract as much as out from you because that's what this whole podcast is all about. Me and the community learning from guys like you who've been there, done that, and delivered things.
But Shwetank, full
So
disclaimer, I mean, I've only been in the e-com startup B2C world for the last year and a half. So I'm
yeah,
sure I will learn more from you in this conversation and not vice versa. But yes, I think a lot of principles of marketing and consumer thinking remains the same. And I
yeah,
hope I'm able to share some of that with the listeners today.
yeah, and going where everything. I think let's bring the elephant to the room straight away. Uh, okay, I was having a chat with you a few weeks back, and you made this amazing statement that I'm hearing quite often now from some of the biggest in the industry, some VCs, some brand owners, that D2C is dead. Right. And I'd love to understand your take and what do you really mean by that, and how we should kind of adapt to that place now.
Okay, so I'll share my thoughts on this, right? I don't think D2C is dead, but I think D2C will really evolve and pivot. It should evolve and pivot. And I'll tell you why I'm saying that. Because a lot of us got, this D2C became a buzzword 3, 4 years ago. What was the situation back then? People said that, hey, listen, most of the brands are owned by large giants, and if I am somebody who has a product idea and I want to test it out, get it out to consumers, see how they're liking it, what is the best method and cost effective method I can do that in, right? And that
True.
was sell it online. So to begin with, it was an online first kind of brand thinking. uh,
Hmm.
a lot of brands I know in the D2C space actually sell extensively on marketplaces.
Yeah.
Now, is marketplace actually D2C, or is it just an online channel? Again, debatable terms. Different people will give
Right.
you different view. But if I stick to the definition of D2C, means customers coming to your website buying from you, I think that proportion, even in online brands, is significantly lower. Most of them
Yeah.
sell on marketplaces, depending on your category. If you're beauty, you'll go to the beauty retailer. If you're fashion, you'll go to the fashion retailer. If you're electronics, you'll go to Amazon. Correct? That happened 3 4 years ago. Now, as the journey in any brand, once you have a product idea, you put it out in front of consumers. Products consumers say, great, I love this brand, I want to use it every month, right? What happens then? It needs to be a part of their monthly purchase basket. Where do
Mhm.
consumers buy their monthly purchase basket? They either post COVID again have gone back to buying it from a physical store. It can be a mom and pop store, it can be a what we call as modern trade in India, or
Mhm.
it can be one basket that gets made on Amazon Fresh or Big Basket, or brands like these. But these are part of your monthly shopping cycles, which means brands need to now be on those channels. If customers are buying
Mm.
your category from a store, you need to be in store. If customers are buying your category from a Big Basket, you need to be on Big Basket. And that's why I feel that while you can start as a D2C brand, you cannot forever remain as a D2C brand. Brands that started 5 6 7 8 years ago and have survived till today, they've already proved that consumers like the product, they want the product. But now I think they need to do the hard work of following the consumer in terms of sales strategy and distribution channels.
Uh, very interesting take there, Sneha. And we work with a lot of D2C brands, and that's something which we very rightly pointed out. They came into existence 3 to 4 years back. We saw the whole online first, mobile phone, your gateway to the world kind of thing, right? And they all talk about we are now trying to open stores, right? So of course there's the whole marketplaces, the quick commerce for some categories, etc. And when they talk about retail, brick and mortar, they always come back saying, but we've never done this. And there is exactly those very large brands who've been in existence for X amount of years. They have limited or very low understanding of the digital first world. How would this is this like the skill set thing going on in the market? Is it the mindset? How do you think this convergence will take place?
Um, Shatan, great question. I think it's both skill set, but I think it's also a function of capital. Building physical distribution is expensive, right? Whether you open your own store, whether you get listed into modern trade, whether you take a target of being in 5,000 mom and pop, or what we call as general trade stores, it
Mhm.
is expensive. So I think online brands going offline um, is definitely a question of capital, uh, and also the right strategy, that within offline, what is the right channel for me to go into. You can't spray and pray,
Yeah,
unfortunately, like online marketing, where you can actually spray and pray and see what sticks. In offline, you can't do that, because just the cost of physical inventory holding will kill you, right?
huge,
Uh,
huge. Yeah.
I think larger brands who don't understand online, I think for them, the challenge is not so much capital. The challenge is their willingness to change. I think if a large company wants to build online presence, I think there's more than enough uh, talent, skill set, tools available in the ecosystem today. But I think it's the willingness to really say that, hey, listen, even if a channel is only contributing 7% to my total revenue, it is still important. I will still give it the mind share that it needs. And I will still sort of take the right bets, hire the right team, give them the right leeway to build it. So I think for them, it's more mindset. I don't think capital is a constraint for them. And for them to go
Sure.
online is not going to be that capital intensive. They're already used to deploying more capital in offline.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if you ask me, I think it's trickier for the online brands to go offline versus, actually, I don't know what is trickier, right? I mean, Is it easier to solve for capital, or is it easier to solve for mindset change? I think it depends. It's a very individual situation.
Okay. Yes. Um, Again, you were CMO for a very large brand, right? And that means a lot of responsibilities, a lot of things to look at. And again, we've seen exponential growth by some of the top brands, and you've been part of their journey, right? Um, from that perspective, when you have in the startup world, they call it like a product market fit, right? So in this tea brand, when you know that it's sticking, people are liking it, and what your brand was, it was like a premium brand as well, right? From a pricing perspective, what were those five most important things, strategies that you had in mind to go and scale to where you guys reach, which was like phenomenally great?
Got it. So I think, oh, five.
Or
Um,
whatever, like some of those pointers, please. Yeah.
Correct, correct. So I think point number one, if you are a premium brand that is associated with a certain quality, I think being seen at places that have the same level of premiumness, I think is definitely one which can come through partnerships, can come through associations, can come through events. So I think that's one. Just finding people who
Yeah.
are like
Nice.
you and then partnering with them. I think that's one. Second is when you're thinking about your distribution strategy, you also have to keep your premiumness in mind when you're thinking what retailers to partner with, what offline stores to get into. I mean, if I have to
Indeed.
give you an example in India, if you are a premium brand, you're more likely go to a Lamarche and focus on that distribution versus saying, hey, listen, I want to go to a big bazaar and get listed in 1000
Makes
big
sense.
bazaars, right? So I think
Yeah.
that's two. How do you really weave your brand positioning into your distribution strategy?
Hmm.
um, and I think three, at least what we did at my previous organization, was be very very particular about quality, whether it's quality of content that you put out, quality of packaging, quality of design. um, but I think just being over obsessed about quality, uh, even the product quality, right? What kind of QC standards do you have? If customers are complaining about the product, are you investigating enough to find out where it's going wrong and what's not working? I think just having those. So I think fundamentally those three parameters, at least for a premium food and beverage brand, become very critical.
Makes sense. That's so important because I've always realized that a lot of brands I know that they kind of grow and then the quality starts to impact, and people are so quick in catching it,
Yeah, yeah.
and it goes out like wildfire. It backfires completely.
But then, if you think about it, everything that I said, right, is actually first principles thinking. There is no
Yeah.
secret sauce, right? I mean, if when you start to build out a brand, there are some principles you follow,
Yeah.
which for a premium
Yeah.
brand can be quality, for a mass brand can be right pricing, for a
Yeah.
problem solving brand can be product promise, whatever, right? And
Yeah.
I just feel that sometimes all you do is you forget that.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
even just going back to basics, reminding yourself, following first principles, uh, I think that is what brands need to do. It's not more complicated than that.
No, you're so right, Sneha. But you know what happens when you get in doing the run of the mill things and everyday things? We ought, like so many times, just forget the basics,
Yeah,
and that has the compounding effect which doesn't go well.
yeah,
But I have to ask this question because the category that you were working with, right, is tea. Okay. There would be so many brands out there, some of the most legacy brands, some premium, some not so premium. I can only imagine how hard it would have been to go and create something from it and then get a sizable market share, right? And the broader question to that is differentiation in D2C world today, right? How do you think that a founder who's come up with an idea and should go about, because differentiation can't be sustainability only, differentiation can't be healthy only, kind of a thing, right? How do they really stand out?
See, I mean, I was lucky. I joined the brand at a stage where a lot of these issues were already sorted. But I'll tell you what because I've seen it up close. I can tell you what I think. You're right. I think differentiation doesn't come through one thing, it comes through multiple things. Um, but I think if you try to achieve differentiation on multiple levers in one go, you make your life more difficult. I think a
Yeah.
good idea is to pick one element, differentiate on that. Once you think you've gone into depth enough of that, right, then you pick the second lever, start differentiating on that, then third, and then fourth, and so on, so on. So, for example, let's talk about a tea brand. Let's say if somebody's starting a tea brand today from
Mm,
scratch, right? Um,
mm,
Ultimately, it's a beverage, which means taste quality is the first parameter. In
fair.
that, even if you're not better, you have to be at par. I mean, that's non-negotiable, because otherwise it's a non-starter. I think
Yeah.
within that, then you should think, can your differentiation be origin? Can your differentiation be the way you bring different flavors together? Can your differentiation be the way you package it, right? I mean, there's so many
Mm,
different ways of consuming tea. There's loose leaf, round bags, pyramid bags. So what
mm,
really, or can you come up with something newer? I've
mm,
seen
mm.
nowadays there are brands that are doing bagless uh, tea bags, where the whole promise is that there's no microplastics that's entering your cup. So they're
Nice.
literally,
Yeah.
right? So I
Yeah.
think that's one.
Yeah.
So I think once you figure that out, then you say, hey, listen, if this is my space, what can I differentiate in packaging? It can be design, it can be storytelling, it can just be
Yeah.
the experience of how you take out a tea bag, how do you use it, how does the rest of the material stay fresh. Just think through those. And I think then third, you need to find a strong voice uh, that communicates what you're trying to do. Sometimes it's founder branding, sometimes it's country branding, sometimes it can just be pop culture, right? I mean, if you say that, hey, listen, I'm a tea that's not a legacy brand, and that's because I'm
Mm.
for the young generation.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, fair.
Great voice, right? Very
Mm.
differentiated. No tea is actually trying to be cool for the young guys. Only
Yeah.
coffee brands are trying to be cool for the young guys. And why is that?
Yeah.
I mean, even if you look at the young population, and I can speak for India, 70 to 75% are still drinking tea. So why is somebody not making cooler tea when there's so many cooler coffee brands? So I think then you
Yeah.
find your voice and just take it from there.
Yeah. See, guys, whoever is listening to this, Sneha just gave an excellent idea to start a new brand.
It's
Okay. Yeah.
always
You
easier
guys
said
should kind of
than done.
work on that.
It's always easier said than done. I always say that it's so much harder to actually do things than talk about. Like, I mean, ideas are, of course, you have to have an idea,
You have
but
to.
game is execution.
Yeah. Building and trying to do this and making those pivots and learning each day, etc. I think one of the most understated statement is that bringing yourself back to work every day. When you're trying to do this, it's really hard. I can understand, and complete.
Ability to say I was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, but just that when you keep on saying I was wrong again, 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 that's hard. But I think, yes, there's a lot of learning in that kind of a thing, right? But on the wrong part of it, well, let's ask you about this. Yeah. So imagine that I come up with this really cool idea of launching a Gen Z tea brand, right? Which again connects to sustainability, connects to being organic, connects to the environment, and all those kind of parameters, right? Something which a lot of people would associate and might be willing to pay those 100 rupees extra for as well. As a new brand launching out, what would be your tips, right, from a whole marketing hat and acquisition retention hat, that these are the pitfalls that you usually see brands doing, and how the new guys can avoid?
Hmm. I think first one would be, if you're building something new, uh, see, you can only change one variable in the customer's life at one point of time. Okay, if you're changing their taste bud, then don't try to change the hit on the pocket or the channel from which they are more likely to buy in the first go. So I think if you are a new brand, and if you know that the easiest platform to get onto and start selling where there's already a consumer demand is Amazon, then go to Amazon. Because
Hmm.
I want you to try a new brand, I want you to pay a premium, and then on top of that, I want you to make the effort of coming to my website and buying it from me and paying shipping and the tracking and
Hmm.
things like that, right? So I
Hmm.
think don't try to change too many variables. I think in the first some time, being very uh, particular about customer feedback is important.
Yeah.
Don't just let sales number misguide you.
Hmm.
I see that. Think of us as consumers. Let's say I saw a brand. Let's say it was a cookies brand, right?
Hmm.
I saw it. I liked it. I bought it. I had one. I hated the product.
Hmm.
I never had another piece. Right now,
True.
your data will say that, hey, I'm a consumer, but I'm
Excellent.
actually not a consumer, right? And had you asked me, I would have told you, and I would have given you actual feedback on product improvement. So
Yeah.
I think listening to the customer,
Yeah.
not just listening to data,
Yeah.
is very very critical. um, what else can the new guys do? See, if you're starting out today, it's anyways way tougher than it was uh, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
I think figuring out your distribution strategy early on is as critical as figuring out your product strategy.
Okay. Okay.
Only selling cost effectively on Meta Google is no longer a great sustainable way to build the brand. And that's why I feel that if you are, especially if you are in a low ARPU category like food, I think figuring out that if you find the right product, how are you quickly going to take it to a sustainable distribution medium. I think that having that clarity, or at least a plan, I would not say you'll have clarity, but at least a plan early on is very very.
Yeah. That's so nicely said, Sneha. A lot of those things is something that we know we look at others doing it, and we kind of just start following the herd mentality or the FOMO kind of thing. But I really like the way you said that don't change too many variables. And I can realize the kind of mistakes that we've also done in our journey, kind of not following that principle is uh, yes, there's an ambition that okay, I'll go and change the entire world or that kind of thing, but changing perception, changing habits, and making people use or like what you just said is so hard.
Yeah.
And
Vedant, it's so
the
funny
yeah
that you use that quote. Sorry to cut you, but go change the world, right? Is a phrase we use so often. But what's the full phrase? Go change the world one step at a time. That's actually the full phrase. I think we sometimes just forget the
yeah
second
yeah
part of it.
yeah
So yeah,
oh wow, yeah, wow, super, that's really nice. And second one again, on the sales data, I couldn't have thought of it the way you described it. Right? I think that's an excellent example of uh, going and really figuring out that buying is one thing and using is a completely different ball game, which guys like us in the SaaS platform can kind of see the numbers, can see the data usage and repeat usage and all that stuff. But again, in the whole D2C space, when the goods are physically consumed, it's so hard. And I think the best way, and I know a lot of those founders, they just pick up the call, just call the guys, find out, take that early on feedback, and kind of build it from there. Okay.
yeah,
Right. Also, that's really really interesting. Uh, so now, hopefully, I'm able to do a few things of what you described, implement that in my strategy, and I'm cruising along the way, starting to learn, understand my customers again. So change the products, etc. Then comes down to the whole question where internet is always very a two-sided is the acquisition and retention strategy. And this is one of the biggest mistakes, in my opinion, Sneha, that I see brands doing is always focus so much on acquisition and bringing traffic, but not on the conversion side of things or optimization side of things. Because I think the whole internet is so skewed. The biggest companies, the biggest agencies always get paid on the share of the ads that you run, right? So they always focus on that. What's your take, and how should one kind of bring about a balance in these initiatives?
See, if you average out over a long period of time, um, not long, like a reasonable period of time, I think any brand that does either of them will anyways die,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I think at different stages, and at different stages of how much capital you have available. I think capital is a very big uh, function of how you behave, and where you focus, right? I think different stages of your capital availability, brands pick up different priorities and focus on them. But I mean, if you have a leaky bucket, you have a leaky bucket, right? I mean, no amount of capital will eventually solve for that.
yeah,
I think the hope is that if your bucket is full enough, it gives you more time to fix the leakages in the bucket. Um, and this is again my assumption basis what I've heard people. They say, hey, let me at least bring more people before I start fixing the retention problem.
yeah, yeah,
When I have
yeah.
enough data to understand why they're not staying, what can I change, etc.,
Sure,
etc.
sure.
If you have the bandwidth to actually work on both in parallel, you should. And to be fair, I don't think people intentionally focus on only acquisition or retention. I think it's a function of how much bandwidth you have, and if you can only solve for one thing, what will you solve for right now?
Yeah, and in my opinion, trying to expand the top funnel is a little easier, right?
Yes, yes.
And that's where, okay, let me bring another 100 and see how it goes, and the number add up one more there, and they're like, hey, see, it worked,
You
right?
can throw money at that problem, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay,
Everything else needs work. I think top of funnel, you can just throw money at the problem and solve for it.
okay, okay. On the money part, let me ask you. I've seen with the whole drying up and funding and startups and D2C, etc., right? How do you see the space right now? Is it getting better? Because there are cool brands coming out, every single day, and I read this report somewhere which I've been quoting quite a lot, but I'm not sure. But it says that about 50 new D2C brands launch in India every single day.
Wow. Is it?
Yeah, you know, and we know that, like any other startup or any other new company, or 98% of these guys have a failure rate, don't survive, and one of the biggest reasons for this is, again, you're not able to generate enough sales, and the cash runs out, etc. um and I'm seeing some rounds being closed by some VCs, and the valuations have, of course, gone down significantly. The amount of money they're raising also is far far lower than what it used to be. In your sense, how is the market, and how do you see the market in the coming couple of years? Yeah,
See, I think this is one area that baffles me as much. Like, because when the valuations were crazy high, I didn't understand why they were that high. And today, when they're that low, again, I wonder why is it that low. I think a lot of it happens. A lot of it is very wave driven. That
yeah,
what's the climate right now.
yeah,
I'm sure that a lot of brands that are raising less money or are not able to raise money could probably be fundamentally good brands, right? And vice
yeah.
versa. A lot of bad brands are also raising money.
Sure,
So I think there's no real answer. Like, I don't know why that happens. I never
sure.
understood the highs. I don't understand the lows. I definitely am hearing people struggle to raise money. I think that there are two things, right? And I think that could be a
Sure,
reason.
sure. Yeah,
I think one is when this whole D2C brands. See, ultimately, who are D2C brands selling to? They are selling to people who are comfortable shopping online, are willing to pay a slight premium for better quality products, um, and are willing to place these trials of small amounts of trust into these brands, right? Those were the
Mm,
consumers. I think the belief 3 4 year back was that this pool of people, consumers, will keep expanding. I don't think that
mm,
has happened, right? I think if 10 million of those people existed in 2020, I think the number is still 10 million, or probably even lower, like
lower.
maybe up or
Yeah.
down by a million. So I don't think the pool has expanded at the rate at which people thought it will expand. So that's reason number one. I think reason number two is selling online has become expensive. So right from your Meta Google costs to
Yeah.
warehousing to logistics to just the amount of fraud that's happening in the whole cash on delivery space, right? I think everything's gone up. So just the cost of selling online has increased. And that's why now whatever P&L you had projected 4 year ago does not hold true. And how do you then arrive at a new P&L which can break even or even make some money, correct? So I think people haven't figured out that answer. Having said that, should new brands not come up? I don't think that's the answer. I
Yeah.
think a smarter way to think about it is, while everybody is trying to solve for that top 10 million, can you solve for the next 20 million? Can you be a D2C brand that is actually solving for the next 20 million or the next 30 million? And can you then come up with better solutions which are affordable uh, for the need of that customer segment?
Segmental market. Yeah.
If you ask me, I think the next wave of startups who will get funding will be startups that are addressing a larger customer pool and not just addressing the top whatever 1 million, 2 million, 10 million that all these niche startup brands are going for. So I think I'm sure there is money available in the ecosystem. It's not like VCs have run out of money. I think you just need to have a business model that uh, they that um, that is built around the new realities of today.
Yeah. I think again very very nicely put, and I would like to just elaborate what you said by a couple of things that I have been seeing, and correct me if you agree there. One is that's why in the past 1 year, we see a lot of these really nice brands coming out of 2 tier and 3 tier cities, right? Because the product that they're developing there is also it's possible to even sell it, not just very metro centric.
They know the
And
needs of
second,
the consumer,
yeah,
which is such a big chunk of consumers, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
your TAM has to be much more bigger than this entire thing, right?
yeah.
And second, I have a good friend, and a brand, Sharma Ji Ka Atta, that brand. Right? And when I met him and we were talking to him about the whole thing, etc., and he's like, we wanted to create something which everybody uses every single day. And even 2 years 3 years back you would never imagine something like this being done, but the kind of product that they were able to launch for the market, which is completely expandable, and they started digital first but now expanding to other channels. So I think I could fit these examples which I was hearing into the way you explained it, because this is how the next wave of how things will be.
And look at the price point at which they are running it, right? I mean, it is not. You're not asking me to pay double for a commodity that
Yes.
I use every day, because
Yeah.
then I would say, hey, see, let's face it, the incumbent brands, as we call them, right? Your MNCs and large corporations, they've been around for a while. There is nothing
Yeah.
fundamentally wrong with
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
product. I mean, it's not like if I
Yeah.
was eating Pillsbury atta or Ashirwad atta, I was grossly unhappy. I wasn't.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
so I agree you're selling me a better product, but that can only come at a marginal cost increase.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a 20%, 30%, whatever, right? And the convenience of it, which is the other channels and stuff like that. Awesome. Oh, this is brilliant. Sneha, so much very, very I would say very deep data insight information that you've shared. And and the way it came out was just so simply, just shows the kind of experience that you have, right? Because when you really go in the thick and thin of things, you are able to put it out so simply, and that was really amazing. um, I've asked a lot of questions that hopefully made you think. It is definitely going to make me think after this. But now comes time for the toughest question.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So this is definitely my favorite one. Now, for everybody listening in, you have to tell us something about yourself that you've never told anyone.
Oh my God. Uh, that I've never told anyone.
Yes, something funny, some incident, or something, something which will make you think more than all the answers that you just did.
Wow. Uh, that's a tough one. Um, something that, okay, I don't think there's anything that I've never told anyone, but let's
Oh,
talk about something that very few people would probably
perfect.
know about me.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I've been a marketer a long time now, right? And I
yeah.
told you how I got pretty clarity pretty early on. But I think what a lot of people don't know is that from a education perspective, I was actually destined to become a chartered accountant. That's the degree I was doing. I had actually cleared a couple of levels in that examination.
Nice. Yeah,
And I think that's when it hit me that I can't do this forever. I have to figure out what else I need to do with my life. That I mean, I was a commerce student, and one of the most natural paths for a commerce student is to become a
yeah,
chartered accountant, at least in India, right? And I
yeah.
think that's the path I was on to. And sometimes, now that I think about it, I was like, thank God that good sense prevailed. I would have been a horrible accountant. So, and I would have miserable doing that. So I think thank God that sense prevailed, and then of course I got the right opportunities to explore something else, build a career in marketing and things like
Sure.
that. But yeah, I think that's one thing that I wouldn't say nobody knows, but very few people know about
Yeah.
me.
Well, that's quite fascinating. Yeah. The universe conspires, and
Yes.
everything that happens is really the building blocks, and just climbing up that staircase to be where you are. And
Yeah.
see, you've been wearing different hats, excelling in them, delivering a lot of value. And we hope whatever you find, or whatever journey that you on board in the coming days, is as exciting, because we're very sure that it's going to go great. Thank you so much, Neha, for your time. It was an absolute pleasure. Looking forward to having you on the podcast again sometime.
Thank you so much, Shatang. I was so nervous for this, right? Because I've seen your podcast and I was like, listen, I can't goof this up at all. I have to be extremely articulate in my answers, just like how you're such a sharpshooter with your questions. So I think, I hope everybody who listens to this benefits from it. And of course, you and I will stay in touch. And yes, we must do this again sometime. It's the good thing is talking to you is like talking to an old friend. So
Exactly. Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
very little pressure or filters.
I'm glad. And what it's also going to do is, now, hopefully, a few people watch this, come up with a new cool tea brand, and then they get in touch with you because they're launching a new
Right?
D2C
Do
event.
your homework, do your research before, because I'm telling you, there's so many people giving you advice all the time. Uh, I don't even say listen to your gut. I always say listen to consumers. Please go ask 50 people, 100 people, bounce off your idea, jam, take feedback, uh, and then get building.
This is again an excellent gold nugget. Thank you so much, Neha.
Thank you, Shazan. Bye bye.